Don't test me, child.
Hello everybody, it's me Surex, and today I want to talk about the possibly meta-defining mechanic from Hearthstone's newest expansion, the Witchwood, which is the odd and even mana cost only decks. Well, what is this? In the upcoming expansion we have two neutral minion cards, which provide an effect that starts on game, which is not a battle cry, which is similar to Prince Malchezaar's effect that he puts 5 legendary minions into your deck. Just with these two cards, say if your deck has only odd or even mana costed minions or cards in general, you get an addition to your hero power, which is for odd mana cost the Baku, the Moon Eater, which is a neutral minions, 9 mana, 7/8. And it upgrades your hero power, similar to the effect from Justica Trueheart. You may remember it from TGT. 6 mana, 6/3, neutral minion, and upgrades your hero power. The classes that profited the most from this have been the Warrior, the Priest, and the Druid, because basically it doubled their strength, and a Warrior had the possibility to gain 4 armor, Priest to heal for 4 life, and Druid gets 2 armor and 2 attack in 1 round. For the even mana costed decks, we have Gen Greymane, the popular Gen Greymane leader from Gilneas, which is a 6 mana minion, 6/5, and he gives you the same effect as the Maiden of the Lake from the TGT expansion, which says your hero power costs only 1 mana for the rest of the game. So I was thinking about which decks want to have 1 mana cost hero powers instead of upgraded hero power. So basically you want to have 1 mana for hero power when you need to play into your curve, and always play on curve, which is usually done by aggro and mid-range decks, and some hero powers don't profit too much from an upgraded hero power. For example, if you play Hunter, you get for 3 damage for 2 mana instead of 2 damage for 2 mana, which is not too much. But if you play with even cost and your hero power costs only 1 mana, then the Hunter has 2 damage for 1 mana, which is very strong. Just keep in mind that you can play this every turn. 1 damage to 2 damage, 1 mana every single turn, which means if you want to just get your hero, your opponent down from just playing Hunter hero power, you can do this in 15 rounds. No problem, because you can start on turn 1. Okay, so other classes that potentially profit the most from this are Shaman, Paladin, because they can have a lot more board presence. Shaman with his totems, Paladin with his dudes, and Warlock because he can draw 1 card for 1 mana and 2 life every turn, which means an aggressive Warlock deck, like let's say a Zoolock, has always the opportunity to have more cards in hand than he may need, just to have all the options to not get out of his pressure. And Mage, at last, 1 damage for 1 mana at any thing he wants to put on, is also very, very strong. So I think these decks profit the most here. Okay, so another thing I want to tell you today, maybe we can discuss that later in the chat, is which classes, not only by upgrading the hero power, but by the card pool they have, profit here the most. Because in my opinion, it's important to know what kind of deck you want to play, and does this minion, even odd theme really fit into it? I mean, okay, an upgraded hero power is always very good, but it needs to compensate for cutting your your card pool for your deck into half, which is a lot in my opinion. Okay, before we start here, just keep in mind that this is information I got somewhere from Hearthstone, is that 0 mana cost cards can be played in every type of deck. Mathematically, this is incorrect because 0 mana counts as an even number, which means you shouldn't be able to use 0 mana cost cards in odd themed decks. But we will see that later when the expansion comes. Yeah, if this is worth. Okay, so basically, I will give you a link also in the description where you can see all the cards that are mentionable for reasons because they're above 0 mana value. Okay, so I will talk about the results here, and yeah. Okay, let's start. The odd winner here is, you may not believe it, because in my opinion he has one of the worst hero powers to be upgraded, is Shaman. Why? Shaman has in his odd mana card pool the most synergies. For example, you have a lot of elementals that you can play. You have overload cards all of the time that you can play, and if you cut your mana pool and you have let's say only 2 mana, then it's completely fine for you to not do anything on that turn. For example, just you play one totem of your choice to just support that theme, and then wait for the next turn. Super easy. And yeah, okay. So this means the odd card theme suits the control heavy style of Shaman the most. And one important thing, the only giant that is playable for odd cost cards is the Shaman Ice Giant, because it's 11 mana. Okay, there is no first, second, third place, because all other classes besides the Shaman have only a few synergies or curves, and 4 are mentionable here. First, it's the Paladin, because the Paladin has a good board presence all of the time, because he can play 2 dudes every turn. This is very, very good because you can pressure your opponent all of the time. Let's say you start with Lost in the Jungle, which gives you 2 dudes. Then you play your hero power, also 2 dudes, which means you have in 2 turns 4 1/1 minions. Super good, right? Yeah, and the next mentionable class here is Priest, because the Priest keeps a lot of important cards, especially his 1-drops and 7-drops. Especially mentionable here are, wait one moment, the Crystalline Oracle, the Binding Heal, the Holy Smite, Inner Fire, because we can time that with the Moth that comes with the new expansion, Northshire Cleric, Power Word Shield. So all of these cards are super strong for Priest and give him the opportunity to survive until he has his combinations on hand to win the game. And on 7 mana you have the Spellstone, which just resurrects your minions. You have Prophet Velen. You have the most important Psychic Scream to push your control heavy style. You have Temperus. Okay, maybe that's not the best here to mention, but maybe we can see a deck here that is able to play that consistently good. And the fun card Archbishop Benedictus, which is also interesting because Benedictus just improves your deck pool at turn 7, so it could be an auto include, could be after yeah, meta sets up. I don't know. Then, if we have mentionable classes for general, we have also mentionable classes for quests. I will come to that later, but we have two more classes here to go, which are the mage. You could also use him theoretically with the quest, but the problem is the mage is not suited that much for the quest if you cut your card pool into half, because you need to save a lot here and you need to be very, very lucky to draw the correct cards to survive. But the mage doesn't lose the potential to burst, which is very important for a control heavy style, and he keeps his secrets, which he wouldn't have if he has even costed deck. Which means if you play odd costed mage in the new expansion, which would be more aggressive or more mid range, it is very nice to see that that these cards don't push the by now very famous secret mage even more, so that it doesn't become an S tier deck or so. The fourth deck here is the Druid, because the Druid, just imagine for 2 mana you always get 2 armor and you can trade possibly with any minion you want in the early stages of the game, which means the Druid can stall out the game, he can trade, and he can go for maybe a Taunt Druid variation, because if you just take a look at the card pool from the Druid, he has his Death Knight card, which is very, very important to stall out the deck even more. You have the Ancient of War, okay. You have Cenarius and you have Hadronox, and you also keep a lot of innervating ramping material with Nourish, with the Greedy Spite, which is very, very good. And you can and want also play the Death Knight, because the Death Knight is not, let's say, a worse version of your hero power, even if it's upgrade. I think it's still the better hero power, but in the early stages of the game you don't have the access to that possibility, which means as a druid you can more consistently ramp and survive, which means as a druid you maybe really want to have that, because after the loss of Jade Druid, he has, you can say maybe maybe Druid has lost his identity there, because a token Druid is nothing you want to identify with all of the time. It is more an aggro based version, which is not too strong, I guess, in the new expansion, because Druid leaves a lot of stuff alone there. So okay, these are the usually mentionable classes, and now the quest mentions, which are also priest, because I said it, priest can stall out the game very consistently, very strong, because he can heal for 4 life every turn, 4 health, and if you get to your quest, you can make it, then you have 40 health again, and can do even more. You have the Psychic Scream option, maybe some steamrolling with Velen, with Inner Fire, something like that, maybe super strong. Next quest option is Warrior. As a warrior you will be able, trust me, to survive the early game much better, really much better, because you have 4 armor every turn, and you can combine it with Reckless Flurry, which means Reckless Flurry costs 3 mana, and on turn 5 you can do a 4 damage AoE, which is basically the same than the Flame Strike from Mage, which also costs you only 1 card then, but costs you 7 mana. So basically said, Warrior has the better Flame Strike now. And we all know from Arena and earlier stages of the game how annoying and strong Flame Strike is. So keep that in mind, please. warrior will be able to stall out his game there, and with taunt variations even more. And if you have your quest completed, you don't need that 4 armor, then you just want to steamroll your opponent and win the game. So it is no problem for you to give away that hero power then, because you get a way stronger hero power. Okay, and last but not least, here we have Rogue, because as a rogue you still can play your quest, you can still play your 1 mana cost minions that play into the quest. And yeah, you stay with your SI7, with Edwin Van Cleave, with Fan of Knives, Mimic Pot, yeah, okay, Deadly Poison, Hallucination. Also, if you want to talk about that, Kingsbane, and you get Valera, Vile Spine Slayer. You have options there. I mean, you don't want the late game options if you play the quest, but you have these options, and this is what stays important here. So the very important thing is what losers are there for the odd decks. These are basically 2, and in my opinion these are Warlock, because the Warlock keeps all of his Q-block cards except the Death Knight, which is super necessary for winning the late game stages and just recovering from maybe an aggressive deck. So it's questionable if you don't want to just play a normal Q-block instead of playing an odd themed Warlock just to get, okay, save, let's say 8 mana for drawing 4 cards or so. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but in my opinion Warlock is weaker in this theme as if he plays normal. And the second one here is Hunter, because Hunter has a very, very specific problem here. Hunter can't use secrets and his weapon together, or let's say he can't play his Spellstone and the secrets together, which is super necessary if you play, for example, a Spell Hunter version, which is, you can say, something like the control version of Hunter. So the Hunter needs to be aggressive and finish out his opponents early. So a normal deck would be better than an odd deck, and that's why he is also a loser here. The problem is, trust me when I say this now, that the even cost cards are, I would say, talked about a lot quicker here, because as I said earlier, the even themed cards or decks are just mentioned to be more aggressive, and yeah, the decks that profit the most from them are, I repeat, Hunter, Shaman, Warlock, Paladin, Mage. And as I said earlier, Shaman will have more control options in my opinion. Paladin has a strong control possibility, but, and this is the very important thing, the aggressive thing is even better for them than the control version, which means there won't be a lot of Baku odd costed card themed decks strong in the matchmaking, so in normal ladder rank play. This will be something, I guess, that stays for tournaments, but keep in mind we get a tournament mode. I don't know if it's in the next expansion or 1 or 2 seasons later or something like that, but we will get a tournament mode. And if you keep this in mind, Baku and the odd costed control decks will be interesting. Okay, so now let's come to the even decks. Very first thing, there is no clear winner in this sort of deck, other than in the odd costed, because every class has more or less the same power level of cards left here. They also all have a few good cards, a few bad cards. I mean, for example, As a priest, you will keep your Cabal Shadow Priest, you will keep Shadow Essence, Free from Ember, Shadow Reaper Anduin, Mind Control, and you can combine that with your neutral minister Spiteful Summoner, and the other one, I forgot the name, the Grand Archivist, yeah, sorry. And so for that, a Spiteful Priest is still playable, also with the even cost theme, but it is questionable if Priest really wants to play that, because I don't know if 1 mana heal for 2 is really that strong, but you can keep your minions alive and stay on the board way longer, and maybe this is all really what you want. Mentionable here is Paladin again, because the Paladin can play a lot of dudes and has still a lot of board presence. I mean, just keep in mind, here you don't play Lost in the Jungle. You play Hero Power, get 1 dude. Then you play, for example, Hydrologist, get a Hero Power. And can just combine that again with anything else. For example, with Knife Juggler, because Knife Juggler is 2 mana, and you can play on turn 3 then, Knife Juggler, Hero Power, and I say in best case you have 2 dudes and 2 2/2s there, which is completely okay. And you still haven't played a lot of cards there, so it means you have still options in your hand. Super good here. The other one is Shaman, because as I said, okay, Shaman is the odd winner, but he also has strong, even costed deck options, because the Shaman has his almost best slots in 2 and 6 mana. So, for example, just take a look at the 2 mana cost. You have the Ancestor Spirit, which is in my opinion very good if you want to keep a minion alive. You have the Flame Tongue Totem. You have the Wind Fury theme. You keep the Hex. You have on turn 6 almost all of your good legendaries, which are Grumble the World Shaker, Not Murabi, Alakir, which is decent. You have Kalimos, and on turn 8 you have the Rune Spear. I know most people dislike the Rune Spear, but it keeps to be an interesting choice. Simple as that. But for odd, the Shaman has the Death Knight. But we get Hagatha, which is an 8 mana cost hero that replaces your usual Shaman hero. And if this is will become good, Shaman may find a way more in the even than odd cost deck type. Okay, and last but not least, Warrior on even keeps a lot of his current legendaries on turn 8, which is mentionable, including a Geosculptor Yip, your Scourgelord Garrosh Death Knight card, Rotface, and Grommash Hellscream, which I think also makes for a very, very strong option in combinations if you want to play with legendaries, let's say a big warrior thing, recruit warrior, something like that. Okay, that's it for now. I hope this wasn't too complicated talk from me. This is the first recording I do since a very long time here. I hope you forgive me. Just tell me in the comments what you think about this. I don't want to tell you this and this and this deck will be the best, the worst, or whatever. Just to mention which decks profit and profit less from the new effect. That's it for today, and I hope we'll see you again. Thanks and goodbye.